Because it's the hardest part of the ring. Hey, the hardest part of the ring. Sometimes you go over that top rope and you bang your head on the ring apron. Why do you do that? That's when you feel like a big dope. Because they're the worst bumps you can be taking. Oh, it's the hardest part of the ring. Hey, the hardest part of the ring. Sometimes you reach out for that hot tag and you go ahead and make your own comeback. Why do you do that? That's when you should quit wrestling, and you're better off rolling in thumbtacks. Hey, W, the hardest part of the ring. Hey, the hardest part of the ring. One more, you got the guy in an abdominal stretch, and you grab the rope for extra leverage, and you get a concussion from the angry rush, and you get paid with a diet soft beverage on the hardest part of the ring. The hardest part of the ring. I lied one more. Sometimes you get trapped in a headlock and you're worried about smearing her lip gloss. You shoot her off and take the shoulder block. Do the leapfrog, give her the hip toss on the hardest part of the ring. Hey, the hardest part of the ring. Now double claps. Clap, 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 clap. The hardest part of the ring. The hardest part of the ring. Ba da ba da. Whoa, yay. What's going on, Bob Squad? What are we bushwhacking our way through? It's the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. Elimination Chamber. It's also a good nickname for my bathroom. It's where I do it's the chamber where I do all my best eliminations. All right, really, Bob, you went there right away. It's a very good show, so I'm not gonna poop all over it then. But I wanted to make that joke because I'm a child. It is not the Hulu edition. This is live on could be pay-per-view if you're dumb, but it's a premiere live event. It's premiere. It's basically free for $5 a month. You buy Peacock, you never open it except once a month when you watch one of these things. And instead of paying $60 for WrestleMania, you pay $5 a month all year, which is $60 for the whole year. But you get every pay-per-view, you get original programming, you get the library of stuff you watch occasionally, until you realize it makes you sad because nothing's that good anymore, and you've watched all your favorite stuff so many times, you just can't possibly enjoy it anymore. How many times can you watch WrestleMania 6, Bob, with 67,678 people in Toronto Skydome April 1st, 1990? I don't know. Too many. It's over. Time to move on. I didn't watch any of the pre-show. Instead, I was at Target, and I got some. I didn't get Wild Cherry Pepsi Zero. They didn't have any, and I was a little upset. I got a 12-pack of Diet Wild Cherry Pepsi. So let's see how this goes. Eesh. Eesh. Yikes. Yowza. Hold the phone. Back to Buggy Up. Stop the press. Every which way from Sunday. Our opening. And I'm glad I didn't see the pre-show again because a lot of times they'll tell you what the first match is, and I don't want to know what the first match is. I hate that. But my guess was correct. I mean, there's only 5 matches on the show because they're all big matches. The women's chamber, the women's elimination chamber, the women's restroom is first. So there's a really long line to get into this match. That was sexist. I'm sorry. They enter in this order. Oh yeah, the show opened with Hulk Hogan 700 the Giant, and throughout the night there were many commercials advertising WWE rivals on A&E, and one of those feuds was Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. So on Sunday, February 19th, if you watch the A&E network, you will actually see a whole thing on Hulk Hogan slamming Andre the Giant. But be that as it may, that notwithstanding, nevertheless, all things considered, one hand washes the other. This is the women's chamber. Asuka, Carmella, Raquel, Rodriguez, Nikki Cross, Natalia, Liv Morgan enter in that order, and they call Liv Morgan the most experienced, and that kind of made me LOL. So this was a challenge because there's no Becky, there's no Bailey, there's no Team Kai and Sky. It's not the people we're used to, and Rhea Ripley's in a different thing. So Charlotte wasn't on the show at all. So yikes. But um, I wrote down one of my notes. Asuka is a delight. She was in last. I think they got her in last or second, not or second to last. No, it was last because Carmelo was taunting her. Pardon me. The facial expression she makes while in the pod and all the interaction between the women when every woman entered, and the men would do this later. They'd all go up to each guy or lady who was stuck in their pod and taunt them. and everything else. So it's become a little bit trite, but at the same time, it was really well done here. And Asuka was great in this because she didn't have to say anything. Instead of having her yell in Japanese, she just doesn't. She just smiles and makes her crazy faces, and it works. Her crazy was way more convincing than Nikki Cross's crazy today. I like seeing Nikki Cross back. I think the problem with my eyes can't unsee Nikki ASH, so I just can't take Nikki seriously as a dangerous person right now, and it kind of hurt my because I'm a fan of I like how she wrestles, but it kind of hurt my it's been hurting my enjoyment of her since she became Nikki Cross again. It's just you should have never showed me Nikki ASH, whatever. But anyway, Liv Morgan and Natalia do a bunch of spots, or the internet calls them sequences now, which is dumb. It's like saying that's like calling a six-man a trios match. Sequences. They did some spots, which is nice, but didn't look very Elimination Chamber. Like I know we have to build, but I don't know if this was the best pairing just because okay, Natalia's kind of like permanently a babyface and occasional heel, but no one ever really boos her. And also they're in Montreal, they're not booing Natalia. And Liv is really popular with like the teen girls and the adolescent girls and stuff. So who do you cheer for? Who do you boo? So I had a little trouble getting into it there, but this does pick up. Raquel Rodriguez gets in there and she's powerful. She can even when she's slamming people against the chains, she cannot stop smiling. Nikki Cross is in there and takes her ring jacket off, and good for her. So nobody's eliminated yet. Carmella enters the thing fourth, so we know that. Wait a minute, Carmella enters fifth. That's the thing. There's four people in the pods. So okay. So after I have a few fundamental issues with this match. And one of them has always been, well, the last person to enter is not a surprise. So why do we do the same dramatic, overproduced WWE game show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire style, overdramatic lights and countdown and buzzer when it can only be one person? Because it's not like the Rumble where we don't really know who's coming out necessarily. We see the person, you've introduced them already. Because the last two-person people to enter the ring are the first two to start usually. So it just kills all the suspense. So basically, if we have a match, if I know, so there's only four countdowns and entrances. I'm sorry to stay on this. So if two lock up, that means of six competitors, there's only three of them are surprises really after the bell rings. Does that make sense? Ah, it doesn't. Who cares, Bob? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Carmella was fun. She was good at taunting the other women in the pods when she came out. So Carmella was playing the chicken shit heel here. She's hiding in the pods. They don't. She closes one door. They don't realize. She runs out the other one, and that plays into the men's match later. Um, Eventually, Asuka gets in, and Asuka beats the shit out of everyone, including Asuka, because Carmella was taunting her so much. Nikki Cross, at one point, she finally takes her ring jacket off. She climbs because someone has to the top of the pod and does a high cross body onto at least three women below. Um, yeah, the sudden cluster. They all look up. I think Natalia was definitely one of them catching her. I'm sure Raquel would have been too, and whoever else was there, Liv probably. We know they're all going down, whether or not the person doing the dive touched them or not. So I think it was just three women. So it would have been Liv, Raquel, Natalia. I think who caught her. But still, uh, it's so trite. It's I use that's a stupid word. I gotta stop using it. But anyway, but people were getting into it. Montreal was still excited. They love Natalia again. Liv gets taken out of the thing somehow. I forget how. Nikki Cross went out first. Raquel takes out Nikki Cross. I think before Asuka comes in, which Liv gets taken out somehow. I think by a double submission, but she can't because now she's crazy and likes pain, which is so not believable. So Liv is in a double submission with Asuka and Natalia. Natalia's got the sharpshooter. Asuka has her bar on, and Liv has to pass out. She can't tap out. So, like, okay, whatever. So Liv's gone, and then who's left? Everybody's left. Raquel got double pinned by Asuka and Carmella. They were kicking her back and forth. So there you go. So I think it's just Asuka, and somehow Natalia got out of there. I don't remember how Natty got out of there, but someone took her out. I think Asuka would have probably. I bet you Asuka hit her with a move, and then Carmella freaking stole the pin. Do one of those most likely. Anyway, Asuka does defeat Carmella. How does she do it? I think she does the submission. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, this was great. It's I was afraid Asuka in evil face paint would have the same problem that Nikki Cross back in her pirate pants was gonna have, but thankfully Asuka never stopped necessarily being too much like Asuka. Even when she was doing the green thing and doing all the yelling and all the and overdoing the catchphrase they'd have her say and everything else, nobody's ready for Asuka. Um, this is new enough but familiar enough. It's a really good balance, and I'm an Asuka fan, and I think of the six women, one of them. I imagine Becky and Bailey. I bet you they have their own gimmick match of some sort of Mania because they're not gonna. You're not leaving Becky off the show, and Becky has no opponents other than Bailey. So whatever. Uh, so I think that's it. I think it'll just be Becky will have her own main event match, not last main event. You know what I mean? Her own big match. And Bianca, like who else of the six of them? Raquel's just too new and too smiley. Who else is a believable? Who can believably be vicious enough? Even though Raquel's the powerhouse, I get it. But she's happy-go-lucky, can't stop smiling lady. She never. I thought she ditched that syndrome when Vince left, and she never did. It actually got worse. I don't know what happened there, but there's no killer instinct. Asuka's the only one I could physically and instinctively believe that could pose some kind of threat to Bianca. The promos leading up to this match which is 6 weeks away, that's going to be a thing because Bianca's got to do all the talking really, and Bianca can cut some good promos I think sometimes, but also I don't see what her actual beef with Asuka would be. Like, what does Bianca have? Bianca's gonna have to do a lot of talking, and there's nothing for her to talk about. So that's I think the in ring I'm not worried about. But no one ever cares. No one cares about the in ring if we don't care about the build and the build up to it. Like Dusty Rhodes would always say, you talk him into the seats. You don't wrestle him in the seats. I think or that Jerry Lawler, whatever, doesn't matter. So, but WrestleMania sells itself anyway. It doesn't matter what the card is. But good to see Asuka get the victory and just not have her shoved aside. Like unfortunately, with most of the women, it becomes okay, now your turn, now your turn, now your turn, now your turn, with Becky and Charlotte kind of being the mainstay stars. So they're not doing that with them, which is nice. We got to move on. There's a commercial for the Infinity QX60. It's a car. You can buy it if you have a lot of money. Then Lashley and Lesnar. Oh, this was fun. They had the match you think they would have, and they both do it very well. It probably didn't even have to go as long as it did. I don't know if it fit. I don't know if the physical stuff was even 10 minutes, but even didn't even need to be. But anyway, it was a DQ. How about that? Lesnar. This was really ass backwards. Lesnar is the baby face here. Lashley switched heel out of nowhere. He became a heel. He never turned heel. He just was a heel one week, and we were supposed to roll with it. Bobby Lashley just he's in the full Nelson. He can't get out of it. Rears back and kicks Bobby Lashley in the testicles. Brock Lesnar does. His foot goes into the man's genitals, and that's a very sensitive area. So Lashley was in a lot of pain because he got kicked very hard in his privates. You understand? Okay, he got kicked in the nuts, and he's rolling around in pain. And people cheered Lesnar because the baby face was in a hold he couldn't get out of and kicked the guy in the dick. And then we cheered. I don't know what's happening, but yeah, they were solidly behind Lesnar. I mean, this is in Montreal again. That comes into play, and they're very nationalistic, very proud of their country. And Brock does reside in Canada. They didn't bring that up in commentary, but he is a Saskatchewan resident, is he not? I think he is. I think then there's oh no. We haven't done these since 2005. It's been 18 years. I hoped they would go away, and they are back. WrestleMania's in Hollywood this year. That means we need a lot of WWE superstars in commercials doing parodies of popular films, but with WWE humor. And ugh, because the humor is that they're awesome. Like their humor doesn't work. So Seth Rollins is the Joker. Not the Heath Ledger Joker, which wouldn't be good. Not the Nicholson Joker or the Romero Joker or the Luke Skywalker Joker. No, Seth Rollins is the Joking Phoenix Joker. Um, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but Becky Lynch shows up and she's doing the Christian Bale Batman and talking to Joking Phoenix Joker, which don't exist in the same world at all. But Becky Lynch is making fun of the voice, but because it's Becky Lynch, we have to show her so she can't wear a Batman mask. Like we wouldn't still know it's Becky Lynch. You have to see her whole face. So is it Bruce Wayne talking to? I don't know. They don't say anything at all. They just say bad jokes to each other, and then eventually it ends. It's painful. We're gonna see a lot of it in the coming weeks. And then, oh yeah, I forgot to mention after Lesnar kicked Bobby Lashley in the dick. They have the same initials. Why would they do this match? Lesnar kicks Lashley in his crotch, and then he does some F5s to a referee and an F5 to Lashley on the table. So the babyface, after purposely getting DQ'd and kicking a guy in the balls, he beats up the officials and puts the heel through a table. USA? I don't know what happened. Joking Phoenix, I already mentioned that. Ariel Helwani is an announcer, and Michael Cole took like 3 pot shots at Tony Khan in the same breath. Hilarious about Tony Khan is mad that Ariel Helwani is on WWE TV because Khan was on Helwani's podcast and it went bad because Tony Khan wouldn't answer any questions that Ariel had to ask for all the fans. But of course, Tony Khan is a huge hypocrite because he loves Dave Meltzer, who does the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega news, and all the guys who just Khan's press conference are all people who just cheerlead AEW. And later on, there was a press conference. WWE did have one, which had a pretty friendly press themselves, but it was just very hypocritical of Tony Khan, who's making himself look stupider and more embarrassed. He's not stupid. He's probably very smart, but more embarrassing. He's embarrassing himself every day. The mixed tag matches next. The Glamazon Beth Phoenix and Edge wrestle Finn Balor and Rhea Ripley with Dominic Mysterio at ringside. Um, I was about to shit on this, and I won't. There were some moments of some odd communication, and a pinfall. Beth was breaking up, but she was a little late, and Edge kind of kicked out anyway. Which is not the end. And there were a couple of moments with her and Rhea where something was clearly off. The communication just wasn't there, which is really fine. You gotta keep in mind because it's Beth Phoenix. She can't wrestle Rhea on a bunch of house shows leading up to this and get to know Rhea and work stuff out. It's just Beth wrestles once or twice a year or whatever it is, and she's got to get in there with Rhea and do what they do. So that's to be expected. It wasn't there was one noticeable cluster in the ring there. I don't like the word botch. It's so overused and it's never used correctly by guys on the internet anyway. So I don't want to bother with it. But there was one noticeable kerfuffle, and there was also that noticeably because the people booed because it was obvious. They forgot very quickly because everyone in there is a pro and shit happens. But yeah, Beth was late to break up a count where someone had Edge pinned. It would have been a Finn Balor, I guess. But anyway, at one point, Dominic Mysterio runs away because Edge chases him, and then Dominic Mysterio comes back. Corey and Cole fight on commentary about the hard time that Dominic Mysterio served. And this is odd. Eventually, the good guys they hit the Shatter Machine, the Revival's finisher. It's like a 3D, but into like a front knee buster code breaker thingy. And a 1, 2, 3, and everyone knows that FTR is friends with Edge, and they've trained with him at his school. He didn't train him to wrestle; they're already well trained, but just worked out with them because Edge has a building with a ring somewhere, so they've helped each other out in the past. think they live somewhat near each other in North Carolina. There you go. So Judgment Day takes the fall, and guess what? This isn't burying the Judgment Day. I'm sure people on the internet are already crying, like, "Oh, they made him, he lost. They just buried him." They don't know what buried means either. No, heels can lose. They're supposed to lose. The babyface should ultimately be better than them. They can get their heat back. Dominic Mysterio has more heat than any other heel on that 3-hour show. They're getting their heat back. Probably tomorrow. And if Edge really does the match he said he was going to do in Ottawa, Judgment Day can just screw him there, I guess. I don't know. What's the difference? Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns are doing like a 30-second thing back with Paul Heyman. Tells Roman Reigns something about the Isle of Relevancy, and they're going to beat up Sami Zayn. Very good. Number 4 of the 5 things, it's the men's chamber, the men's toilet. And this was also very good. This was very physical. It was a little weird with them only fighting for the U.S. Championship. Usually they're fighting. In several past years, we're accustomed to that chamber match being for the other half of the WrestleMania men's main event. One of the two big title matches, because the Rumble winner would get the other one. That hasn't been the case this year or even last year, I think. Last year was some Saudi Arabia thing, and Lesnar lost it in the thing and got hurt in the thing, or supposedly Lesnar, whatever the hell. So, so he can fight Roman and lose in the unification. Yeah. So these last 2 years we haven't done that. It's really very a little random. Just the U.S. Championship. Austin Theory, he defends in there. He enters first, then Montez Ford, then Bronson Reed, then Damian Priest, our old friend Johnny Gargano, and Seth Rollins. A lot of that. They all do the thing. And they start off with Seth and Gargano. This did not do anyone any favors. I'm down on Gargano. I'm down on Johnny Gargamel. He's very athletic and blah blah blah. I don't believe him. This crowd lost their shit all night long for everything, and he still did not get a good response, in my opinion. I didn't hear much. They don't. He's just. It's one thing to be a nerdy underdog. You can't be too much of a dork, though. You got to be somewhat kind of cool. Like he's got this very fake I'm funny thing. He has a fake funniness to him, which is very unfunny. Not everyone's funny, okay? John Cena's not funny. The Rock's kind of funny. Steve Austin's kind of funny. But having a sense of humor and being funny are two completely different things. A lot of people think they're funny. Most people think they're funny. No, they have a sense of humor. They're not really funny. And this doesn't mean only me and my comedian friends are the only funny people around. No, 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 no. Funny people are everywhere. But not everyone is funny. Recognizing humor and being able to make it consciously or unconsciously is a different animal altogether. Johnny Gargano does not have this. He doesn't make me care about the guy. I'm just waiting to see him have a good match with Seth Rollins, who I care much more about. And they did their back and forth. It wasn't as indie-rific as I thought it was going to be, thankfully. It was a lot of going for pins that everyone knows no one's going to get, and a lot of standoffs. And they would stay with each other through most of the match and have a little fake allegiance here, a fake allegiance there, and temporarily team up to do some damage to some bad guys. But Theory comes in third, and Seth and Gargamel, they corner Theory in one of the pods, so there's 3 guys in a pod and fists are flying. And they kind of called back to the women's chamber spot where Carmella runs in one side of the pod, closes the door, and runs out the other side. Theory thinks, because they have to make him look dumb, Theory thinks he's run away from Gargano, who's a foot taller than, closes the pod door, and then in very Bugs Bunny fashion, Gargamel points behind Theory, and Theory turns around, and Seth Rollins is right there in the open side of the pod, and they beat him up. Yeah, Damian Priest is in there. This is the best Damian Priest performance in a very long time. Bronson Reed is big. He's next. He was good in this too. And Montez Ford, to my surprise, was last. I want to make a note of this first. Montez Ford does this dive. I don't like just talking about high spots, but whatever. I wrote, I forgive it. Montez Ford did the dive, and everyone clustered and caught him. Sorry. The way he did it was so bananas. People, I think they popped louder for the terrifying way he had himself hanging, as opposed to the actual release and fall. He climbs to the top of the chains of the chamber, and he's got himself kind of upside down, but not really. Kind of almost head down at a 45-degree angle, hanging from the top of this thing, 20 feet in the air, whatever the hell it is, 15 feet in the air. And they all look up, and thankfully the camera work was as such that they kind of avoided watching you see too many heads and hands looking up. But he drops from there, and he has plenty of time to adjust his body and put his hands out and everything else. So, but it was just the insanity. Like it made everyone's balls tingle. At least mine. My balls tingled a lot during that. I had to replay it 6 times. A lot of ball tingling there, as opposed to getting kicked in the balls when you're fighting Brock Lesnar. So he does that, and I forgive it because yikes. I mean, he was great in this. He made 2 eliminations in the chamber, took 2 dumps. And what else did I write? Everybody be a Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed did what I expected he would do. He would dominate, kick everybody's ass. I thought he would eliminate someone, but no, he was out first by Montez Ford. Johnny Gargano was taken out by Damian Priest with the Razor's Edge. Priest went out next also by Ford. I don't know if it was a splash or whatever the hell it was. Um, I think with Bronson Reed, Gargano, and Seth and Montez Ford were all giving him finishers. So they gave Bronson the best out there. He took like 3 good guy finishers, and then they pinned him there. I forget how Montez Ford pinned Damian Priest. I really don't remember. He got him somehow, and then Ford gets beaten by Theory. I think Seth gave Ford his stomp or whatever. Oh yeah, yeah. This was crucial. They did the old Hell in a Cell. How do we get Michaels out of the cell trick? This was great. So Ford he's got his upper body hanging over the ring apron, his hardest part of the ring. But of course, there's different flooring there this time. Seth gives him the stomp. Theory steals the pin, but it doesn't really matter who pins the guy if you're not, you know, because he's eliminated. You're just one of the last 2 now, so why would you care? But anyway, they do a thing with Ford, and I was buying it until I caught it because I did remind myself, hey, they need an excuse to do X, Y, Z, um, and they get Ford out of there. They keep the door open for a long time, and Seth and Theory go back in a little while. Logan Paul, who you can't miss because he's always dressed like a banana, jumps from the ring apron, hardest part of the ring, forward flip, does the buckshot lariat, better than Adam Page. Nails is, and Seth, so awesome, comes right to the middle of the ring for him, but not until the last second. Just made it look seamless. And that leads to what else to sell? Yeah, Logan was pretending to get out of the ring. He gave Seth his own stompy thing. Theory hits his own finish. Theory retains 1, 2, 3. Big celebration for Theory. Camera on Logan Paul because he's famous. Basically, we're just setting up Seth Rollins and Logan Paul here, which will be a meaningless back and forth 50-50, which I assume Seth will win, and then we'll see Logan a couple months later, as best as I can tell. And Theory will wrestle. I don't know. Everyone thinks it's going to be John Cena at WrestleMania. I have no idea. I don't know the answer, but this was very good for what it was. Basically, it was much ado about setting up Seth and then Paul Logan. But whatever. Theory, even if Theory kind of won, somewhere or he kind of lucked out in many ways and was somewhat treated somewhat goofily. Theory gets his heat back at this press conference thing later. I just don't know if anybody watched it. It's on the Peacock Network. Now we get to Roman Reigns, the main event. Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn in Montreal. First of all, we're talking about Ivan Koloff being from Montreal. Michael Cole just told us that this has the feeling of like when Bruno Sammartino had the title for 7 years and Mancha and then the Russian bear Ivan Koloff from Montreal defeated him. And like, did anyone? No, we're just gonna. He said the Russian whatever he was, the Russian bear, the Russian chicken. I don't know what the hell. The Russian koala, the Russian kangaroo. I have no idea what animal it was. Okay, I didn't take any more notes after this. Didn't need them. Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns. There must have been 10 minutes of just crowds just cheering and chanting. The FU Roman chants I don't really care about. I'm not offended, but the fans at some point have to understand you're gonna mess up the TV. They let it go, and they even addressed it, and kind of the announcers had a little fun with it. I guess the announcers addressed it too, but yeah, if you keep that shit up and do it on Raw and SmackDown, guess what? You're gonna ruin the live show for the people at home because then the whole audio is gonna get muffled and taken down, and then it sounds like nothing's going on. Yeah, and there's kids there. Like, what are you doing, guys? I don't know. It just doesn't. Maybe I just got old. And I was at live ECW shows in the 90s in the Northeast, uh, chanting dumb bullshit myself. So, but then I turned 20 and grew up. So that was that. Anyway, they eventually have this wonderful, simply structured but wonderful match with Sammy being the underdog. Sammy coming out oh so close, and even had me, even had me raise my eyebrows, even though I know full well Roman's winning this thing coming out of it. And spoiler, he does. But still, I knew it would be a really well worked match. Where even though we all know this isn't happening for Sammy, we still know he's going to make us gasp several times, which is really what I wanted, and it's what was delivered. So that was awesome. Again, the crowd was so bananas. It's not a Roman Reigns match unless the barricade is speared through, but this time Sammy just moved instead of Roman or Lashley or Lesnar or Braun. Those are the main barricade breakers in the company. It's always one of them. You got to break the stupid things. And Bray Wyatt will jump into the barricade breaking mix from time to time. So no Bray Wyatt on the show, no LA Knight either. What happens? Okay, so there's two ref bumps, which okay they save them, which is good. No other ref bumps in a night. Of course, I'm pretty sure I don't remember, but during the first ref bump, I'm sure Sammy had Roman beat during the first ref bump. Why wouldn't he? Didn't see this coming. Uh, oh wait, no, I'll get to that later. Sorry, I jumped the gun. But Sami Zayn's wife is at ringside, and Roman's taunting her a whole bunch. And Sami Zayn, he fights back. And at one point, he's about to do a top rope. Sami's on the floor, and he's about to climb to the top to hit a move on Roman, but he runs out quickly to celebrate and kiss his wife after a big move. Like that's the announcers didn't call him. Actually, no, Corey did. Like, hey, you're taking too long, which is good. I mean, he does kind of look dumb when he does that, especially when Roman's going to move from that move, and he did. I forget exactly what happened if Roman put knees up, caught him in one of them punches or something. But one the first big cutoff was Roman doing one of his uppercuts with Sammy coming off the top. Because Sammy came off the top with the standing elbow to the head, which you never see anymore. So that was very cool. But then, of course, he got cut off. Yeah, anything. Sorry, this isn't a funny one, guys. The Raw and SmackDown ones are funnier because it's just a funny show with silly things going on. These are just a bunch of wrestling matches, which we need on these shows, and that's fine too. Eventually, Jey Uso, to my surprise, and I was wrong. I was under. They paid some fine. They did something. They snuck those guys within the cargo. To my knowledge, if you've got a bunch of DUIs in America, you cannot go into Canada. They don't like it, and that had something to do, I believe, with why the Usos were not in Cardiff in the UK last September when Solo had to debut and do the thing with Drew McIntyre. But both Usos show up here, so and no Solo. So what the hell? I want to know that story. Jimmy's in there first, and he's still pretty much a loyalist to Roman, and he hit a bunch of moves on Sammy, and then a ref comes to 1, 2, 2 and 7/8, which is good. Sammy gets out of there, and what happens next? There's probably some of the ref bump. Anyway, there's a bunch of interference. Sammy is constantly distracted. I think he had to give the haluva kick to Jimmy on a ring apron, as hardest part of the ring. Turns around, gets the spear. I think he kicked out of one spear, but eventually he gets another spear. 1, 2, 3. Roman has defeated Sami Zayn. You feel the air lifting out, and they're beating up Sammy. They're whacking him with a chair, and something happened with Jey Uso. Oh yeah, Jey Uso stopped the first assault, and it was a whole thing. Oh, it was to get to the finish. Before the finish, yeah, Jey Uso stood in the way, and it was kind of ambivalent to who he was siding with. But Roman's very upset with him, of course. Roman hands him the chair, and oh yeah, that's right. He doesn't. Jey Uso doesn't hit anybody with the chair. Sammy goes to spear Roman, but Roman moves. Sammy spears Jay back, and turns around, gets a spear from Roman. 1, 2, 3. That was the finish. Jay disappears. We don't even see him walk back. It was a short aisle. But we don't get to see him walk back. They're beating up Sammy. They're about to do the 98 chair things, and he took several. They're about to keep it going. Kevin Owens music, you kind of had to see that coming. So also no Cody Rhodes, no Cody, no Becky, no Bailey, no Charlotte on this thing, no Bray Wyatt, no LA Knight, no Drew, no Sheamus, no a lot of people for a show with two multi-person matches. I missed out on a lot of them stars. But then again, then we'd have the same matches. So you're 6 to one, 6 to the other. Yes, I know it's the same expression. Half a dozen of the others stupid. It's the same thing as six. Kevin Owens beats up Jey Uso twice, pretty much. Roman gets the stunner from whatever, and Roman's in a corner, and Kevin Owens steps aside and allows Sammy to get in his haluva kick on Roman Reigns. And even though Roman wins, Roman is kind of left leaving with his, embarrassed with his tail between his legs. Funny and surprising moment because you never see physicality from him. Only once before did we, and that was in SummerSlam. Physicality from Paul Heyman, who's pounding away on Owens' back, and he looks like a child and throwing a tantrum. It's very funny. He Owens turns around, boot, stunner, and Heyman flops away. So that says to me like Heyman's not going to be because it's Heyman. He knows to definitely at least this week not be on TV and maybe in a neck brace the week or two coming back is what I anticipate. Yeah, that's and watch me be wrong. He'll just be fine on Monday. What the hell do I know? No, I think we need that. I think we need that, or at least I don't know if we need that. I think it's what we're doing. They're gonna give Roman and Paul Heyman an excuse to just not be on TV for a week, at least a week, maybe more, but at least a week, and go, you know what? You guys figure this out. We'll build a main event ourselves. Who knows? But Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn do not necessarily reunite, become friends again. They don't hug. They don't. They don't. There's no heavy petting. There's no soft caresses. There's no whispering sweet nothings in one another's ear. Sweet nothings. Sweet nothings. There's none of that. Owens kind of leaves. They play Sammy's music. The Montreal people celebrate for Sammy's amazing effort. That is the pay per view. Then there's a press conference. Not much to say about that. Same setup as AEW's, but way shorter and organized. And yes, there's press that's clearly WWE friendly, but the questions were pretty. Yeah, there was some gushing, like there's always going to be, but there was some fairly standard, but neutral questions like, hey, what about this big sale that might happen? That kind of stuff. And Triple H danced right around that and said, the hell with this. And Sammy Zayned himself and embarrassed himself. Edge and Beth Phoenix were out there, and Edge made bad jokes. And I think who came out first to talk? Austin Theory was first, and he was the best part of all of it. He was shitting on the internet reporters. And it was great, and Sammy had real emotion, and he started off just saying how weird he felt, even though he rambled and totally Sami Zayned himself and made himself look like an insane person. He gave the experience of knowing Sammy, which I don't think they really want to do if they want to keep him as a super over babyface. And but it was almost like he was coming full circle. He's like, I'm actually feeling better now that I'm talking about this out loud. And that kind of felt like we were on a mini journey with Sammy there. So that was nice. And good to hear from Triple H. See, he's looking well. He had a little trouble getting out. He was about some emotional stuff about Pat Patterson, how Pat would have loved to be there. So it was nice, and Triple H was always more likely than Vince to take things back to history. Vince is always the future, and which is great. But at the same time, Triple H would always. He's the one who mentioned the Vachons and the Rougeaus and all these um, Ed Carpentier. I think he said like all these French Canadian wrestlers and everything else. And And Edge was allowed to say Rick Martel and Bad News Brown. Like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's good for us old timer fans to hear that kind of stuff, and Triple H treats it like it still matters. Um, some days it warms my heart. Other days I'm like, I don't even think it matters anymore, but I wished it did. But at least he's trying, so kudos to him. Elimination Chamber was a good show, just as the Royal Rumble was a good show. I'm afraid of WrestleMania. I always am nowadays. The last couple of years, they've done these two-night things. I think this will be the fourth two-nighter. The first one was during the pandemic. The 2020 was the first two-nighter, so this would be the fourth. Yeah, two-nighter. Uh, Thankfully, they don't have the NXT, or if they do, I just stopped covering it. The NXT thing at the same time, and yada yada yada. I don't know. I'm glad I'm not as rigid with this podcast, like, because like if they do SmackDown, NXT, Hall of Fame, and then two WrestleManias, I feel like I got to do 5 episodes. And now I just don't feel that way anymore. I'll do WrestleMania. Should Obviously I'll cover WrestleMania. I think each night should get its own episode for sure, but you're not going to hear me do the SmackDown before. It's kind of silly. Hall of Fame, whatever. If something of note happens, we'll talk about it or not. Sorry, this is a sleepy recap, guys. I just want to tell you the show was good. This is really mainly for people who haven't listened to it yet, but don't care about spoilers and are like, should I watch it? Bob says you should. Bob says you should. And if I was smart, I'd watch it the day after and skip a lot of the hoopla and not see Seth Rollins dressed as Joke and Phoenix. And because I like Seth and I like Becky, and I hate seeing those things that make me like them less. So, yikes! What other movies are they gonna do? I think they had Miz and Maurice do Top Gun and like a brief little commercial thing. I'm sure there's a longer version, and yeah, I'm sure there's some other stuff too. I don't know. I can't think of any right now. Oh, they had Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman's doing the Goodfellas. Do I look funny like a clown? And Roman Reigns should not be in those ever, ever, ever. That's the end of that. Okay, it is over. Thank you, Bob Squad. On the hardest part of the ring. The hardest part of the ring. Ba da ba da.